I met Paige when I was 27 and she was 24. I was helping my buddy move into a new apartment complex, one of those cookie-cutter places just off the highway, identical brick buildings, plastic mailboxes, landscaping that looked good for about 5 minutes before dying in the heat. Paige lived 2 floors up and came down to complain, politely, about the noise. She was holding a basket of laundry and wore a band t-shirt and shorts. Her tone was annoyed, but her eyes weren't. That was the first thing I noticed about her. Her eyes always gave away more than her voice ever did. We ended up talking for almost an hour. My friend just kept hauling boxes inside while I stood there like an idiot making her laugh about power drills and moving day disasters. By the end of the conversation, I'd asked if she wanted to get coffee sometime. She said no, but gave me her number anyway. We went out a few days later. Nothing fancy, just a diner that stayed open past midnight. We talked until the place closed, then sat in the parking lot for another hour with the windows down and music low. I don't even remember what we talked about. Just that it was easy. We dated for about a year before moving in together, and a year after that, we got married at a local courthouse. It was a Tuesday. Rainy. Her mom cried. My dad forgot to bring the rings. We laughed about it then, and even now I still think of that day as one of the cleanest, clearest memories I have. We weren't wealthy, but we were steady. I worked as a facility tech for the local school system. Paige had a job at a small creative firm downtown, client relations and admin mostly. She was good at keeping things organized, keeping people calm. She had this stillness to her that made others want to trust her. We rented a 2-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood. Low traffic. Decent schools. We turned the spare room into an office that neither of us used much. It mostly held laundry and unopened mail. Our routines became comfortable. Predictable in the best ways. She'd wake up before me, always did, and put the kettle on while scrolling through her phone. I'd stumble out of bed 15 minutes later, hair a mess, shirt halfway buttoned, and she'd already be moving around like the day had started without me. We had our habits, weekend groceries together, movie nights on Fridays, morning walks on Sundays when the weather was good. We weren't the couple who posted about each other online or made dramatic declarations. We were quieter than that. More private. But she still reached for my hand when we crossed the street. Still ran her fingers through my hair when we sat close. Still left little reminders, notes on the fridge, texts in the middle of the day with dumb jokes or grocery questions just to say she was thinking of me. If you'd asked me back then, I would have told you I was sure. About her. About us. Our house wasn't anything special. Brick, 1 story, creaky floors in just the wrong places. We joked that the thermostat had a mind of its own and the guest bathroom toilet only worked when it felt like it. But it was ours, or at least, it felt that way. We split chores without having to talk about them. I handled the yard, trash, anything involving tools. Paige did the laundry and kept the kitchen looking like a page from a catalog. She had a thing for candles, lavender, sandalwood, eucalyptus, always one burning somewhere. Said it made her feel calm. Most weeknights looked the same. I'd get home around 5:30. She was always there first. Her job let her leave a little early most days, which worked out since traffic was worse in her direction. I'd find her on the couch, legs tucked under a blanket, a mug in one hand and her phone in the other. She always looked up when I walked in, smiled like it never got old to see me. Dinner wasn't a big event in our house. Sometimes she cooked, pasta, stir-fry, those little roasted chicken meals she could do half asleep. Sometimes I grilled. Sometimes we just ordered Thai and called it a win. We'd eat in front of the TV and talk about the stupid things that happened at work, my busted AC units and her never-ending email threads. She had a laugh that came in 2 stages, first, the soft little one she gave strangers and clients. And then the real one, the messy one that pushed her head back and made her eyes squint. That one only came out at home. We didn't talk about big life changes much. No serious discussions about kids or buying a house. It wasn't that we were against it. We just weren't in a rush. When you're happy, you don't always think about the next step. You just are. We had our spots. A burger joint on 9th we kept going back to, even when it changed owners. A park 2 blocks over where we'd take Cooper and sit on the same bench under the same crooked tree. Saturday mornings were for errands, grocery runs, dry cleaning, whatever bills needed dropping off. We never made a thing out of it, but it felt good doing life side by side. We weren't the couple with fireworks and drama. We didn't need that. We were the couple who got through long days with takeout and reruns. The ones who didn't fight over furniture or dishes or texts left unanswered. Sometimes I'd wake up before her and just watch her sleep, hair a mess, arms stretched across the bed like she owned all of it. I'd think about how lucky I got. Not in a fairy tale way. Just in that quiet, steady way you feel when something fits. When something makes sense. People ask me if married life was different. I used to say, not really. But what I meant was, it felt like I could breathe deeper knowing she was beside me. That every time I walked through the door, I was walking back into something whole. Somewhere along the way, we stopped measuring our happiness in big moments. We weren't chasing milestones or counting anniversaries on restaurant menus. Our joy came in smaller, steadier forms, shared grocery lists, inside jokes that had aged into shorthand, glances across a crowded room that said more than words ever could. Paige was good at the little things. She remembered to buy the brand of cereal I liked, even when it wasn't on sale. She kept our bathroom cabinet stocked with the specific soap I always forgot the name of. She folded my laundry the way I liked, even though she swore it was the most backward system she'd ever seen. But she did it anyway. That's the kind of love we had. Some nights, we'd cook together. Music low, kitchen warm, her bumping me with her hip when I got in the way. We'd talk about the day, clients she had to wrangle, something dumb I overheard at work, a new recipe she wanted to try. We had a rhythm. Like dancing with someone who never misses a step. She didn't like surprises. Never had. She was the type who double-checked calendar invites and arrived 10 minutes early everywhere. I'm more loose with time, with plans, with pretty much everything. But we balanced each other. She made sure the world didn't fall apart. I made sure it didn't feel too tight. We took a weekend trip in early spring. Nothing fancy, just a cabin near the lake. Brought Cooper with us, packed a cooler, and left our phones on airplane mode. She read on the porch while I grilled burgers. We played cards at night and slept with the windows cracked open. It wasn't a getaway from anything. Just a quiet pause in a life that already felt right. Back home, everything kept humming. We'd get invited to dinners, to birthdays, to baby showers for other couples. Paige was always gracious, she'd dress nice, bring thoughtful gifts, ask the kind of questions that made people feel heard. I liked watching her in rooms like that. She knew how to carry herself. Never the loudest, never the center, but somehow still the person everyone noticed. We didn't make a habit of talking about the past or worrying about the future. Our conversations lived in the now, how her day went, whether the dog needed his nails trimmed, whether we had enough in the fridge to last through Sunday. That was our world. It wasn't perfect, but it felt built to last. She had a soft side she didn't show everyone. Sometimes I'd find her staring at the old photo strip we took the night we moved in, her in a hoodie, me with a mustard stain on my collar, both of us laughing too hard to look at the camera. She kept it in the junk drawer, tucked between batteries and stray receipts, but I saw her look at it when she thought I wasn't paying attention. I loved that about her. That even in all the everyday noise, she still remembered the beginning. And so did I. Saturdays had their own rhythm in our house. We didn't talk about it, didn't plan it. It just formed over time, like everything else. She'd sleep in a little longer, and I'd take Cooper out for a walk around the block. Sometimes I'd bring back coffees from the place near the gas station, hers with almond milk, no sugar. I never had to ask. By the time I got back, she'd usually be up, hair tied back, glasses on, scrolling through her tablet in one of my old sweatshirts. That image, Paige, in soft light by the window, barefoot, content, stuck with me more than any anniversary photo ever could. The rest of the day unfolded in pieces. A trip to the farmer's market. Folding laundry while a record played in the background. A slow afternoon movie. Sometimes we did nothing. Sometimes that was the best part. We didn't need much. And that was kind of the point. Our life wasn't full of noise. We didn't throw parties. Didn't post curated glimpses of our marriage for strangers to applaud. We had dinner, we cleaned up, we let the dog beg under the table, and we talked about things that mattered only to us. Paige had a calming effect on the room. People liked her. Friends always told me how lucky I was. And I believed them. She didn't need to impress anyone. She listened more than she spoke. She made other people feel like they belonged, and somehow, that made me feel like I belonged, too. Work stayed steady for both of us. She was busy most weeks, but not in a way that overwhelmed her. I asked if she ever got tired of sitting at a desk all day, and she smiled and said, "It's better than standing in heels answering phones." That was her old job, something she never talked about fondly. Evenings during the week followed the same shape. I'd come home, kick off my boots, and she'd already have something going in the kitchen. Sometimes she'd call me in to taste a sauce, or ask if we had more garlic. Sometimes I'd just sit at the counter and talk while she moved through the kitchen like she'd memorized it in a past life. She always lit a candle after dinner. Not for the smell. For the routine. She said it helped her feel like the day was winding down. I used to joke that she was slowly turning our house into a spa, but the truth is, I liked it. She had a warmth to her that couldn't be faked. When she laughed, when she touched my arm in passing, when she reached for my hand at a red light, it felt like everything was right where it belonged. We were good. And when people say that, we were good, they don't usually mean perfect. They mean stable. Real. Grounded in something you don't have to analyze. And that's what we were. It started with a phone call she didn't take. We were halfway through dinner, something simple, soup and toast, and her phone lit up on the kitchen counter. She glanced at it, just for a second, and let it ring. No explanation. No reaction. Just that quick glance and then nothing. I asked, "You're not going to get that?" She didn't even look up from her bowl. Probably spam. But she reached over and flipped the phone face down anyway. It wasn't much. Not the kind of moment you'd mention to anyone else. But it stuck with me longer than it should have. A few days later, I noticed her laundry piled up longer than usual. Paige was meticulous with her clothes. Saturday morning was always laundry time, like clockwork. But that week, the hamper stayed full. She didn't say anything. Didn't explain why she skipped it. Just acted like it didn't matter. She eventually got to it Sunday night, tossing shirts in the washer like she was in a rush. When I offered to help fold, she shook her head. "It's fine, I've got it." She'd never turned me down before. Then there were the appointments. Paige had always been diligent about her health, checkups, flu shots, dentist visits. But now she had 2 in 1 week. Just a routine follow-up, she said, brushing crumbs off her jeans. Nothing serious. I asked if she wanted me to drive her. She smiled, but there was something off about it. "No, it's quicker if I go alone. You'd just be sitting in the waiting room." True enough. Still, I made a mental note of the times. Just habit, I guess. She left a little early that Thursday, said she had an early slot and might grab coffee afterward. She came home quiet, said the appointment ran long, and went straight to take a nap. I didn't press. But I noticed. That weekend, we went out for a friend's birthday dinner. Paige looked beautiful, hair curled, lipstick darker than usual. She wore a dress I hadn't seen in months. It wasn't until we were halfway through the evening that I realized she wasn't really there. She smiled, nodded, laughed at the right parts, but her hand never found mine under the table. Her eyes kept drifting off. On the drive home, I asked if everything was okay. She turned her head toward the window. Just tired. Long week? Yeah. I watched her reflection in the glass. She looked sad, almost. But when we got home, she kissed me on the cheek, said goodnight like always, and climbed into bed. I stayed up a little longer, sitting in the dark with the TV muted, staring at the way her keys were placed on the counter, perfectly lined up, as if she wanted them to be seen but not touched. It was nothing. Probably nothing. We all drift sometimes. Get distracted. Work piles up. Energy dips. I told myself that. Still, something had shifted. Just a flicker, like movement in the corner of your eye. Gone when you look straight at it. It's funny how silence can start to feel like noise once you're listening for it. Paige had always been a quiet person, but now the quiet felt different. Measured. Intentional. She still smiled, still moved through the house the same way, but with a layer between us, like she was always slightly out of range. The little things added up. Her schedule started shifting. She used to keep me in the loop without even thinking. I've got a haircut Thursday, or, don't forget I'm meeting Lily after work. Now, her days blurred. I'd ask, you home for dinner tomorrow, and she'd pause, blink, then say, I think so. She thought so. That was new. One night, I saw a new blouse hanging in the laundry room. Cream-colored, delicate, with tiny silver buttons. It was still in the dry cleaning plastic. Not a gift. Not something I'd ever seen her wear before. When I asked where it came from, she said, oh, that? Just something I picked up last week. Clearance rack. Paige didn't shop on impulse. Not for herself. Especially not when we were trying to stay ahead of the bills. But I let it go. Asked nothing else. That same week, she started taking her phone with her everywhere. Into the bathroom. Into the laundry room. Even just walking to the kitchen. It wasn't like her. Paige wasn't the type to scroll constantly. She'd leave her phone in the bedroom for hours and forget where she put it. Now, it was always face down or pressed close to her side. Once, I walked in and she jumped, literally jumped, when I came around the corner. She was holding her phone, staring at it like it was burning through her palm. She locked the screen too fast for me to catch anything and said, God, you scared me. I apologized. She laughed it off. But her voice was a little too bright. I stopped sleeping well. Not because of anything she said or did. But because the quiet between us had changed shape. It wasn't calm anymore. It was full of questions I couldn't ask. Like where she went every Tuesday afternoon. She'd started working, a little later, on those days, except I'd checked our shared calendar and her office closed at 5. She never came home before 6:30. Once, I casually offered to bring her dinner near the office, said I'd be in the area. She looked up from her tea and said, oh. No need. I've got something already. It was the hesitation before the answer that got me. The way her voice stuttered for a second, just long enough to trip over the truth. I didn't accuse her. I didn't even let it show. But that night, I watched her sleep with her back to me, curled toward the wall, her breathing slow and even. And I felt like I was lying next to someone who had already left, someone who was still keeping the shape of her place in our bed, but not much else. Something was wrong. I didn't know what. But I knew I wasn't imagining it anymore. By the time the second month of late nights rolled around, I stopped pretending not to notice. Paige had always been consistent, her habits, her mood, the small kindnesses that defined her. But now she was inconsistent in the exact ways that mattered. She didn't ask how my day was. She didn't leave little notes in my lunch like she used to. She didn't forget things so much as choose not to remember them. Like my mother's birthday. It wasn't the forgetting that stung, it was the blank look on her face when I reminded her. Like it meant nothing. Like it wasn't something she'd already marked on the calendar for the past 3 years. She hadn't touched me in weeks. And I wasn't even angry about the sex, not really. What got to me was the absence of want. The absence of reaching, of softness, of shared warmth. Even when we kissed, it felt hollow. Mechanical. Like checking a box. One night, I watched her from the kitchen as she stood by the front window. Phone in one hand, the other wrapped around her waist. She wasn't talking. Just typing. But her expression, something about it felt removed. Like she wasn't in our house anymore. Like her body was here, but her mind was in another room entirely. I asked her who she was texting. She smiled without turning around. Just Lily. But I knew her tells. She always touched her necklace when she lied. Her hand went to it without thinking, thumb and forefinger twisting the small silver charm she'd worn since college. That was when it hit me, not a full theory, not a name or a face, just the realization that there was someone else on the other side of her attention. Someone I didn't know. Someone she didn't want me to know. It wasn't a wild leap. It was math. Time, distance, tone, change. I didn't ask again. I didn't accuse her. I just went into the garage and stood there, staring at the tool bench. Trying to decide if I was being paranoid, or finally honest. The next morning, she left early. Said she had a morning meeting. But I found her planner sitting on the kitchen counter, flipped open to Thursday. Nothing was written there. Blank. No meeting. No reminder. That evening, when she came home, she was wearing different earrings. She had her hair pinned up, not how she left. I asked how the meeting went. She said, fine. Just the usual, and then changed the subject before I could ask anything more. We ate in silence that night. I think she knew I was pulling away. Maybe she felt it. But she didn't ask. She didn't try to pull me back. That scared me more than anything. Not the lies. Not the change. The indifference. The way she seemed perfectly at peace with letting this quiet collapse unfold without a word. The next week, I started paying attention in a different way. Not to what she said. But to what she avoided. And I knew, deep down, I was getting closer to something. I just didn't know yet how loud the truth was about to get. It was a Tuesday morning when the news broke. I was eating breakfast, scrolling on my phone like I always did, nothing serious, just trying to keep my mind off the static building in my chest over the last few weeks. Then I saw the headline. Local physician under investigation for inappropriate conduct with multiple female patients. The name hit me first. Dr. Martin. I knew that name. That was Paige's doctor. The one she started seeing a little over a year ago. The one she said was professional, discreet, and not rushed like other clinics. She'd recommended him to a friend once. I remembered because she said his office had the nicest receptionist she'd ever dealt with. But the article didn't mention the receptionist. It mentioned his assistant. The one who was allegedly involved in multiple encounters with patients, some consensual, some blurry, all unethical. The assistant's name wasn't familiar at first. I didn't recognize it. But then they published the location, the clinic on North Eden Street. That was the one Paige went to. The one she never let me drive her to. The one with all those follow-up appointments. There was a quote from an anonymous patient, describing how the assistant had initiated private messages, then escalated the relationship outside of the clinic. One woman said she thought she was special, until she realized there were others. The article said there was video footage of the assistant escorting patients to his car after hours. One of them, blurry face, but clear enough for me to see the outline of her, had Paige's posture. Her walk. Her hair. I stared at the screen for a full minute, frozen. Then I scrolled. Further down, a short sentence dropped like a hammer. A source close to the investigation confirmed that multiple women, including married patients, are involved. That was it. Everything clicked into place. The missed calls. The last-minute schedule changes. The new clothes. The way she wouldn't touch me. The silence. I didn't say anything to her that day. I didn't call or text. I didn't wait up. She came home late. Again. I was sitting in the living room, TV off, the article still open on my phone. She walked in like everything was normal. Set her bag down, slipped off her shoes, glanced at me with that same tired smile she'd been wearing for weeks. I didn't smile back. She paused. What? I held up the phone. Turned the screen to her. She didn't even ask what it was. She knew. Her whole face dropped. Not in fear. Not in guilt. In resignation. She sat down slowly, like she'd been expecting this moment. I asked one question, how long? She didn't answer. I asked again, quieter. How long? Still nothing. Just eyes filling with tears that didn't fall. Lips trembling with excuses that never came. I stood up. Walked to the door. And said without turning back, get out. She called my name. I opened the door. Get out, Paige. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. Because when you've been lied to slowly, quietly, over time, by someone you trusted, there's no energy left for theatrics. Only clarity. And I finally had it. She didn't fight me when I told her to leave. Maybe she knew there was no point. Maybe she realized I wasn't asking, I was done asking. She stayed in the hallway for a few seconds, holding her bag like it had all the weight of what she'd destroyed. Then she stepped outside. I shut the door behind her. I didn't slam it. Just closed it until the lock clicked, and she was on the other side. She texted twice that night. Once to say she was sorry. Once to ask if she could come back just to talk. I didn't reply. There's something freeing about certainty, even when it hurts. The kind of hurt that doesn't burn, it freezes. Numbs. Gives you clarity. I didn't have to wonder anymore. Didn't have to look at her sideways or study her voice for cracks. The truth had already detonated. Now I was just walking through the ash. The next day, I took her name off everything. Bank account. Emergency contact. The utilities. I cancelled the joint card and shredded it on the kitchen counter. I wasn't angry in the moment. I wasn't shaking. I just felt focused. Controlled. The way I imagine surgeons feel when they cut out something dangerous with steady hands. She didn't go far. Her sister lived across town, and I knew she'd landed there. Probably spinning some version of events where she made a mistake, where it got complicated. That's how people like her try to survive the shame, they downplay it into something human. But this wasn't human. It was cold. Calculated. Quietly dragged out for weeks, maybe months. I didn't know how many appointments turned into motel rooms. How many messages were sent when I was upstairs brushing my teeth. But it didn't matter. The specifics were dust now. She'd buried us long before I found the grave. So I started digging her reputation up. I wasn't sloppy. I wasn't cruel without aim. But I knew people. And I knew how to talk when I wanted to be heard. I made one call to the design firm she worked for, anonymous tip, nothing more. Just thought HR should know one of your team members is involved in a clinic-wide investigation. Might want to check the news. I posted once on Facebook, not dramatic, not bitter. Just. The woman I married is no longer in my home. She made choices that I found out the same way you all did, through headlines. I didn't tag her. I didn't need to. People figured it out fast. Her inbox flooded. I know because one of our mutual friends forwarded me a message she sent begging him to tell people to stop. I didn't. That weekend, I boxed up her things. Every photo, every book, every candle, every carefully labeled folder she left in the drawer. I stacked it all neatly in her old parking space, covered it with a tarp, and texted her the address. Your things are out front. I won't ask twice. She came. I didn't open the door. I watched her from behind the curtain, silent, small, and nothing like the woman who once told me I was her home. She drove away with her past packed in cardboard. And I stood in the doorway of what was left of mine. I thought I'd feel better once she was gone. I didn't. Not right away. The house was cleaner, yes. Quieter. But it didn't feel like relief, it felt like echo. Every chair she used, every half-burned candle, every framed photo that used to make sense now looked like a prop from a lie. But I didn't let it swallow me. Instead, I turned it into fuel. I found the emails. Buried in the old desktop we used for bills and holiday cards. She hadn't logged out. They weren't explicit, not all of them. But they were enough. Messages from an address I didn't recognize. Time-stamped. Casual. Familiar. Flirtation built into the phrasing, the little winks in punctuation. She didn't even delete them. That told me everything I needed to know. She thought she was safe. She thought I would never look. I screenshotted everything. Not to share yet, but to hold. To know that what I felt had a spine. A record. Evidence. Then I wrote the letter. Not a rant. Not a threat. Just a carefully worded account of what happened. The affair. The deception. The connection to the scandal. I listed names, dates, messages. I attached the screenshots. Then I sent it, to her company's leadership team, to their HR inbox, and to the anonymous tip line listed on their ethics policy. I didn't write my name on it. I didn't have to. A few days later, she lost her job. I found out through a mutual acquaintance. They let her go last week. Something about image and professional conduct. It wasn't a surprise. She worked with clients. Reputation mattered. No firm wanted their employee's name linked to a sexual misconduct scandal, even secondhand. She texted me once after that. Just 2 words, why this? I didn't answer. Because if she didn't know by now, then nothing I said would matter. I moved on to our social circle. The ones who thought they knew both of us. I didn't rant there either. I didn't scream. I just told the truth when asked. She cheated on me with the assistant involved in that clinic investigation. No embellishment. Just the facts. People dropped her. Quietly. Some unfriended her online. Some stopped returning her messages. Even the ones who tried to stay neutral couldn't ignore what she'd done, not just to me, but to herself. I didn't feel powerful. I felt clean. She wanted to preserve her image. Keep the sympathy. Hide behind, it got complicated. But I wouldn't let her. She made a choice to dismantle our life piece by piece. I made a choice to let her watch it fall. I started putting my own life back together, slowly. I reconnected with old friends. Took a few weekend trips. Cleared out every drawer she once touched. The only thing left was the key she never asked to get back. I kept it in a drawer. Not out of nostalgia. Out of proof. That she left. That she broke it. That she never even tried to come home, until there was nowhere else to go. I didn't want her back. I wanted the truth to leave a mark as deep as the betrayal did. And now it had. The house feels smaller now, but it doesn't feel empty. Not anymore. At first, every room still echoed with what used to be there. The space beside the bed. The corner of the couch where she always curled up with a book. The mug she used for tea, long gone now, but I'd still reach for it like muscle memory. But memory fades when you stop feeding it. I took down the photos. I didn't rip them. I didn't burn anything. I just put them in a shoebox, taped it shut, and left it in the back of the hall closet. Out of reach. Not out of spite, just out of the way. I repainted the bedroom. Moved the furniture. Donated the throw pillows she loved but never used. Bought new sheets. Hung new pictures. The kind that don't carry any ghosts. She never reached out again after that last message. I didn't expect her to. We both knew what the silence meant. She wasn't coming back. Not because she respected the damage, but because she had nowhere left to run the script. There's a freedom in being done. A brutal kind, yes. But clean. I go to work, come home, cook for myself. Cooper still follows me from room to room like he's afraid I'll disappear. Sometimes I think he knows what happened better than anyone. Dogs don't understand lies. They just feel the temperature change in a house. A few people asked if I was going to date again. I said I wasn't sure. And I meant it. I'm not in a rush to fill the space someone else emptied without warning. I'm not looking for someone to replace Paige. I'm just trying to remember who I was before her, and figure out who I'm going to be now. There are moments I still think about it. Not her. Just, how close you can be to someone without ever seeing the edge of them. How you can share a bed, a name, a future, and not realize they've already stepped out of it, piece by piece. I'm not bitter. Not anymore. I'm not angry. What I feel now is simpler, done. She lied. She left. Not physically, but emotionally, long before I told her to pack a bag. And I responded. I didn't let her walk away untouched. I didn't protect her from the fallout. I let the truth be louder than her silence. And now. I sleep. I breathe. I make coffee without waiting for anyone else to walk into the room. She made her choices. And I made mine. The life we had is over. But I'm still here. Still standing. Still building something real from the pieces she tried to leave behind.